Article 517.33 of the National Electrical Code addresses wiring methods specifically within operating rooms. This section of the code is crucial for ensuring electrical safety and reliability in these critical healthcare environments. The core requirement of 517.33 is that only permanently installed wiring methods are permitted within the operating room. This means that wiring must be installed in a way that is fixed, secure, and not subject to movement or disconnection during normal use. The reasoning behind this requirement is to minimize the risk of accidental disconnections, electrical faults, or physical damage to wiring that could compromise the electrical supply to essential medical equipment. A critical aspect of this code provision is the explicit prohibition of flexible cords for permanently installed equipment. Flexible cords, such as those used for extension cords or appliance connections, are not allowed as a substitute for permanent wiring within the operating room. This restriction is in place because flexible cords are more susceptible to damage, wear, and accidental disconnection compared to permanently installed wiring methods. The NEC definition of permanently installed wiring typically includes methods such as rigid metal conduit, intermediate metal conduit, electrical metallic tubing, and cable ties that are designed for permanent installation within walls, ceilings, or floors. These wiring methods provide a higher level of physical protection and are less likely to be damaged or disconnected compared to flexible cords. Even the requirement for permanently installed wiring, HCF cable, which stands for Healthcare Facility Cable, also known as flexible metal-clad cable, is not permitted for wiring receptacles within the operating room. HCF cable is a type of flexible metal conduit that is commonly used in healthcare facilities for wiring branch circuits and equipment. However, its flexible nature and reliance on fittings and connectors make it unsuitable for use as a permanent wiring method within the operating room, according to 517.33. Receptacles within the operating room must be directly powered from the emergency power panel, also known as the essential electrical system. This requirement ensures that these receptacles remain energized during a power outage or other disruption to the normal electrical supply. The emergency power panel is designed to provide a reliable and uninterrupted power source to critical equipment and systems within the healthcare facility, including those in the operating room. The purpose of requiring emergency power for operating room receptacles is to maintain the functionality of essential medical equipment during a power outage. This equipment may include surgical lighting, patient monitoring systems, ventilators, and other life support devices that are critical for patient care. By ensuring that these receptacles are powered from the emergency power panel, healthcare providers can continue to provide necessary medical care without interruption in the event of a power failure. In the context of the question, the use of receptacles for floor maintenance machinery introduces a potential conflict with the requirements of 517.33. While it may seem convenient to use operating room receptacles for powering cleaning equipment, the NEC prioritizes the safety and reliability of electrical power for medical equipment. Therefore, if the receptacles are intended for use with floor maintenance machinery, it is essential to ensure that they comply with the requirements for emergency power and permanently installed wiring methods. To ensure compliance with the NEC, it may be necessary to install separate receptacles specifically for floor maintenance equipment. These receptacles should be powered from a separate branch circuit and may not need to be connected to the emergency power panel, depending on the facility's specific needs and risk assessment. However, it is important to consult with a qualified electrical engineer or inspector to determine the appropriate wiring methods and power source for these receptacles. In summary, Article 517.33 of the NEC prohibits the use of HCF cable for wiring receptacles within the operating room. Receptacles in the operating room must be powered from the emergency power panel to ensure a reliable and uninterrupted power supply for critical medical equipment. If receptacles are needed for floor maintenance machinery, they should be installed separately and comply with all applicable electrical codes and standards. It is essential to consult with a qualified electrical professional to ensure that all wiring and equipment in the operating room meet the requirements of the NEC and other relevant regulations. The rationale behind these strict regulations is patient safety. Operating rooms are areas where life-saving procedures are performed, and any disruption to electrical power could have serious consequences. By requiring permanently installed wiring methods and emergency power for receptacles, the NEC aims to minimize the risk of electrical hazards and ensure the reliable operation of medical equipment during critical situations. When evaluating whether a particular wiring method is considered permanently installed, several factors are considered. Firstly, the wiring must be securely fastened to the building structure. This typically involves using appropriate supports, such as clamps, straps, or hangers, to secure the wiring to walls, ceilings, or other structural elements. Secondly, the wiring must be installed in a manner that protects it from physical damage. This may involve using conduit, raceways, or other protective enclosures to shield the wiring from impact, abrasion, or other potential hazards. Thirdly, the wiring must be installed in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions and all applicable electrical codes and standards. This ensures that the wiring is installed in a safe and reliable manner and that it meets the requirements for its intended use. In the case of HCF cable, its flexibility and reliance on connectors and fittings make it difficult to meet the requirements for permanently installed wiring. The flexible nature of the cable allows it to be easily bent and moved, which can increase the risk of damage or disconnection. Additionally, the connectors and fittings used with HCF cable can loosen or fail over time, which can also compromise the reliability of the electrical connection. The NEC recognizes the unique electrical safety requirements of healthcare facilities and includes specific provisions to address these concerns. Article 517 of the NEC covers healthcare facilities and provides detailed requirements for wiring methods, grounding, and other electrical system components. These requirements are designed to minimize the risk of electrical shock, fire, and other hazards in healthcare settings where patients may be particularly vulnerable to electrical hazards. When designing and installing electrical systems in operating rooms, it is essential to carefully consider the requirements of Article 517 and other applicable codes and standards. This includes selecting appropriate wiring methods, grounding systems, and overcurrent protection devices to ensure the safety and reliability of the electrical system. It is also important to conduct thorough inspections and testing of the electrical system to verify that it meets all applicable requirements and is functioning properly. In addition to the requirements of the NEC, healthcare facilities may also be subject to other regulations and standards related to electrical safety. These may include requirements from state and local authorities, as well as accreditation standards from organizations such as the Joint Commission. It is important to be aware of all applicable regulations and standards and to ensure that the electrical system meets all requirements. The use of emergency power in operating rooms is a critical safety feature that is designed to protect patients and healthcare providers in the event of a power outage. Emergency power systems typically include generators, batteries, and other backup power sources that can provide electricity to critical equipment and systems when the normal power supply is interrupted. The emergency power system must be designed to automatically switch on within a specified time period after a power outage occurs. This ensures that essential medical equipment can continue to operate without interruption, even during a prolonged power failure. The emergency power system must also be regularly tested and maintained to ensure that it is functioning properly. This includes conducting periodic load tests to verify that the system can supply the required amount of power and performing routine maintenance on generators and other equipment. In addition to providing power to receptacles, the emergency power system may also supply power to other critical equipment in the operating room, such as lighting, ventilation systems, and patient monitoring devices. The specific equipment that is connected to the emergency power system will depend on the needs of the facility and the types of procedures that are performed in the operating room. The design and installation of emergency power systems in healthcare facilities is a complex process that requires specialized knowledge and expertise. It is essential to work with a qualified electrical engineer or contractor who has experience in designing and installing these systems to ensure that they meet all applicable requirements and are functioning properly. The use of floor maintenance machinery in operating rooms can introduce additional electrical safety concerns. These machines may be subject to harsh environmental conditions such as moisture and chemicals, which can increase the risk of electrical shock or other hazards. It is important to ensure that all floor maintenance machinery is properly grounded and that it is used in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. It is also important to regularly inspect the machinery for any signs of damage or wear and to repair or replace any damaged components. In addition, it may be necessary to provide ground fault circuit interrupter or GFCI protection for receptacles that are used with floor maintenance machinery. GFCIs are designed to detect small electrical leaks and to quickly shut off the power supply to prevent electrical shock. In summary, the use of HCF cable for wiring receptacles in operating rooms is prohibited by Article 517.33 of the NEC. Receptacles in operating rooms must be powered from the emergency power panel to ensure a reliable and uninterrupted power supply for critical medical equipment. If receptacles are needed for floor maintenance machinery, they should be installed separately and comply with all applicable electrical codes and standards. It is essential to consult with a qualified electrical professional to ensure that all wiring and equipment in the operating room meet the requirements of the NEC and other relevant regulations. By following these guidelines, healthcare facilities can ensure the safety and reliability of their electrical systems and protect patients and healthcare providers from electrical hazards. The NEC is updated every 3 years, so it's crucial to stay informed about the latest revisions and interpretations. Local amendments to the NEC may also exist, so consulting with local authorities is advisable to ensure full compliance. Consider a scenario where a hospital renovates an existing operating room. During the renovation, the electrical contractor proposes using HCF cable to wire new receptacles for mobile X-ray equipment. However, after consulting with an electrical engineer familiar with healthcare facility codes, they realize that 517.33 prohibits the use of flexible cables like HCF in operating rooms for this purpose. Instead, the contractor installs rigid metal conduit with individual conductors to supply power to the receptacles. They also ensure that these receptacles are connected to the emergency power system, guaranteeing a continuous power supply during any power interruption. This adherence to the NEC not only ensures compliance but also reinforces the safety and reliability of the electrical system, crucial for the operation of life-saving medical equipment. Let's explore another case. A hospital maintenance team plans to use the existing operating room receptacles to power floor cleaning equipment after hours. While seemingly convenient, this raises concerns about the integrity of the emergency power system and the potential for overloading circuits designed for critical medical devices. To address this, the hospital decides to install dedicated receptacles, wired with the appropriate permanently installed wiring method as determined by code, on a separate circuit not connected to the emergency power system. These receptacles are specifically designated for maintenance equipment, preventing any disruption or risk to the critical power supply for medical operations. This proactive approach ensures that both the maintenance needs and the stringent safety requirements of the operating room are met without compromise. Let's consider a third example. During a routine inspection of an operating room, an electrical inspector notices that some of the receptacles are wired with flexible metal conduit, or FMC, a type of flexible wiring. Upon further investigation, it is revealed that this wiring was installed during a previous renovation without proper adherence to Article 517.33. The inspector immediately flags this as a violation, emphasizing the need to replace the non-compliant wiring with a permanently installed wiring method, such as rigid conduit. The hospital promptly takes corrective action, replacing the FMC with rigid conduit and verifying that all receptacles are properly connected to the emergency power system. This incident highlights the importance of regular inspections and strict adherence to electrical codes to maintain the safety and functionality of operating rooms. These examples illustrate the critical nature of understanding and adhering to NEC Article 517.33 in healthcare facilities. The prohibition of flexible cables like HCF and the requirement for emergency power connections are paramount for ensuring the safety and reliability of electrical systems in operating rooms. By following these guidelines and seeking expert consultation when needed, hospitals can create a safe environment for patients and medical staff.